Hey folks, how you doing out there? This is Dustin Sherman. I'm coming back at you live again with another interview. This is Denice Ledlow, and she is the state director of Blexit here in Alaska. And me and Denice worked a little bit on Blexit for a little while, so this will be an interesting and very welcoming interview. So, Denice, welcome aboard.
Hello, hello.
So you've been working for Blexit now for how long?
I think it was June or July of last year, so coming up on a year here in a couple of months.
Well, I tell you what, I've been following Blexit a little bit since I was actually involved with it, and you've done a lot more with it than what I could have, so I want to give you props for that. When I was with it, we were kind of a floundering group, and we didn't really have a ton of direction, and I think it's you giving them that, so congratulations on that. And I look forward to seeing everything that Blexit can offer here in the state. And I know that with Alaska being a very diverse state, probably one of the most diverse states, I think that it's very well needed, and I think that you're doing a good job so far. So tell us a little bit about Blexit and what it stands for, and some of the things that you have already experienced with it, and some of the things that you're doing and things that are up and coming.
Of course. Well, first I want to say thank you to you and our first state director. I can't bypass it without saying thank you to Corinthians for starting it. You guys had a passion to start it, and thank you to you for inviting me along, because I wasn't brave enough to start it. So thank you to you guys for bringing me along and letting me kind of watch and develop. And then, I took it, and here we are. So I just had a passion, and we just started and started growing. So what Blexit is here in the state of Alaska, we are, of course, the community service branch of Blexit, the foundation. We are practicing servant leadership. We know that there is a need here in Anchorage and the state for just living by example. Some of the things that we've done so far is just the initiatives that we have every month. This month here is talking about critical race theory. There are a lot of misconceptions about critical race theory. There's a thing like a social, emotional learning, diversity, equity, and inclusion. These things make us feel good, but sometimes what makes us feel good isn't always right for us. And so we are spending time kind of educating people what that is. And sometimes the moment that they get that light bulb, they start voting differently or talking about it differently. So that's what we've been spending time doing. Next month is Back the Blue. So we're trying to spend some time focusing on our police officers, talking about them, shedding some love on them, just community-minded, and anybody that wants to get involved in that, we're trying to help them get involved in that.
Now, Blexit's a 501c3, correct?
Yes, it is.
So they do take in donations and stuff through the website?
Yes, we do. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So anyone that wants to help out with Blexit, make sure that you visit Blexit.com. That's correct, right?
Blexitfoundation.org, and you can donate that
Okay.
way. Mm-hmm.
I know that the stuff that I've seen so far that you've done. You've taken in donations and stuff for clothing and things like that. And in fact, in my business, we actually put a box up for a toy drive. Mm-hmm. So anything that we can do to help with the youth and educate folks here in town that may not be on the up and up about whether it's just different policies that some of the administrations are pushing out there, or like critical race theory, and there's a whole bunch of other things. And you're going down to the school boards and stuff like that too, and trying to promote basically freedom and loving America and all that kind of stuff. And it seems lately there's been a whole lot of stuff that's been going against that. So Blexit's definitely got a presence, not just in Alaska but nationally. And there's some great people nationally that are involved in Blexit. And can you tell us a little bit about the history of Blexit?
So Blexit, it started Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum, they started it a few years ago, and the grassroots movement was actually started by Pierre Wilson, and he started it as kind of what I'm just talking about, community service. He wanted to take what Candace was talking about and making it more tangible to people like you and me.
Right.
You know, just taking what Candace and Brandon were talking about and making it on the ground.
Right.
And so they teamed up, Pierre Wilson, Candace, and they made it a organization for people like you and me.
Well, you know, being involved with it kind of at the ground level when it first started off, you know, I got to talk to a few of the people from the national level, and I think at one point I actually got a chance to talk to Pierre on the phone, and you know, their heart's where it needs to be, and I think that, you know, if we can get the community a little bit more involved in it, I think it's a win-win for everybody, because there's no animosity toward anybody. There's no political overtones toward it. It's just trying to make the community better. And
It really is.
I think that having discussions like this is a huge part of that. And you know, education is a huge part of it. Devotion to one another is a huge part of it. And you know, I think learning and having the education on a lot of that stuff is what's really lacking.
Yeah.
And you know, whenever I, as someone that was in the beginning of it, and whenever I asked you to join, I seen that you had the passion and the drive to do it. And you know, when I finally just decided to step down or leave, I was actually, most of us that ended up leaving at the time were praying to God that you would take it over. So it was a great surprise that you decided to step up and do it. Not really a surprise, but it was a pleasure to work with you when we did work with you. And you know, my problem was just the time. I just didn't have the time that I wanted to do it. I wanted to pursue other things like this, and it wasn't anything wrong with the organization or nothing. Everybody I dealt with was phenomenal. It's just trying to devote the time between work and everything else. And I applaud you for being able to do that.
Well, it does require a lot of time and a lot of work. But you know what? In the end, we need guys like you to do things like this, because we need your voice, and I need to be able to put our message out on a podcast like this. So thank you for what you're doing.
You know, this is kind of if I could do anything else in life as far as like a career, this would be something I would enjoy doing, because I just enjoy talking to people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, you know, political or not. You know, I've had people on that I don't necessarily agree with, but you know, when it's kind of funny when you're in a group setting, and you may see this with Blexit actually, because every group is the same. You may disagree on certain things, but whenever an individual talks to another individual, there can be common ground.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that we had, I think, and you know, nationally and locally. I think a lot of the problem is we see everything online, and we want to jump in and dump on somebody, right?
Yeah.
And it's the wrong thing to do. You know, we see it here locally quite a bit, actually. And I honestly, I'll you know, be 100% honest with you. I'm guilty of it. I think everyone is. We don't look at each other as individuals anymore.
Right.
You know, we look at each other, oh, he's a part of this group, he's a bad person.
Right.
And you know, we have to start coming together as a humanitarian thing, and I think that's where Blexit has its niche.
Yeah.
You know, you guys, it's very inclusive. Anybody can become a member of Blexit and help out the community. That's what's so refreshing about Blexit, is it's not a political entity. It's something that goes out there and it helps the community when they're in need.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about your team.
Our team right now is we have 3 members right now. We're small but mighty, and we are out trying to change the city and the state. We have a couple of positions open, and we'd love anybody that's wanting to and is passionate about the mission to contact us through Alaska at Blexit.com, and we'd love to have a sit down with you and try to convince you to join our team. But of course, we have got an assistant state director, and he is an amazing. He's over at another event right now. We've got our media director, and she is on fire.
Right.
Miss Nisi, she's awesome. She's always online posting and constantly putting things out, and we just are small but mighty. But that's what we're doing, and we need volunteers, and our volunteers are important to us too. So
Well, and that's the one thing that with any organization, volunteers are critical. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's a lot of good people out there, and the churches and whatnot. I'm part of the problem, and I seen this whenever I was involved with it, was just getting people out there. And right now, I think once the political season in Alaska starts to go away, I think you're going to start seeing more volunteers pop up. I think everybody is kind of burnt out. We've had a pretty long run of stuff that's happened here in the city, and trying to get the local government and stuff to do what the people want them to do is like pulling teeth sometimes. So I think that once the political season wraps up, I think that you're going to probably start getting some volunteers in. And, if I can facilitate that in any way, I will do my best to make sure that happens. The one thing about Denice, and I'm going to kind of go into our friendship a little bit. So Denice, we met at one time. We did a Back the Blue event, I think is what it was. And it was a big rally down in Northern Lights in Minnesota. Or no, Northern Lights and New Seward Highway. And we kind of came together. We kind of walked past each other and kind of eyeballed each other a little bit. And we're like, I know who that is, but who is that? Kind of thing, And then we kind of hit it off. And then I had eye surgery. And come to find out, we both knew somebody in the surgeon's place. And, he came to talk to me one day, and we just kind of hit it off. And then thanked me for the community service that I was doing at the time. And I'm like, yeah, I appreciate that and stuff, but how's Denice doing? Oh, she's doing great. I'm like, man, we really need her in the fight. So, we kind of all hit it off, and I think the respect is more than mutual. I think that Denice has done a great job doing what she's doing. She's a great advocate for the community, her church, Blexit as a whole, and I think that it's a win-win that you're in there. So tell us some of the stuff that you're looking at doing here in the future. I know that volunteers are important, but give us kind of an insight onto what you're looking forward to in the next year.
Well, so of course we have our monthly initiatives, and so we're planning as of right now, big events. That's my hope. So we have an event coming up here on April the 2nd. It's called Rock the Boat, Rock the Vote. It's a prayer event mixed into a vote, just kind of information thing over on, the address is escaping me, but the Mountain View Library parking lot. We're hoping that it's a big event, and we're setting it up like, we're just going to inform you where the ballot boxes are. We've got a couple of guest speakers coming out, and it's going to be a big thing. We're looking at hot dogs, snacks, that kind of thing, and it's going to be a thing. It's over April 2nd before the vote, so we're looking at having that. And then in May we have a community cleanup. So we're looking at having that. We're going to try to team up with the city and have our community cleanup that day too. Okay. So.
Well, that's something that's great, and that should bring people together for a community cleanup. Everybody wants clean streets. Everybody wants clean sidewalks, and I've seen different states that I've lived in. I've seen things like that bring the community together very, very well, and it gives people a chance to find out things that they may have in common.
Yeah.
And it takes their mind off of all the political crap that's going on in the world today. And so you have a set of criteria that Blexit uses to teach the community different things. So do you want to go over those?
So the main thing, if you're referring to our pillars,
Yes.
our 5 pillars, so the main thing that we have is Blexit has a vision, right, that we have to kind of change the narrative, right? There's one set vision for low-income and minority communities that has been, kind of set in stone, right? And Blexit's vision is to change that narrative. Why does it have to be that way? And so our plan, our vision, our kind of where we're trying to shift thing is through these 5 pillars, and it's through school choice, Advocating for school choice and alternative education opportunities for low-income and minority families, just letting them know that these are options for you.
Right.
Your socioeconomic status does not make you have to be in this failing school, okay? Promoting criminal justice reform, right? And allowing people the opportunity to say, hey, you can vote for different policies. This is an option for you. Let's look at this. Let's change this. Championing entrepreneurship programs in different areas, and then also developing history programs. Right, we've got this thing out there going on right now called the 1619 Project, right? That thing is based off of a imaginary fiction, right? And it's being taught in our schools. So why can't we teach them factual history? So we are about teaching real history programs and then presenting the message through lively Blexit event.
Right.
Kind of like the April the 2nd event that we're planning. So those are our 5 pillars. That's where we are trying to shift the narrative and say, hey, you don't have to be in this mindset your whole life. You really can do things differently. It really can be different. So
Right. Well, so one of the questions that I have, and I've been kind of thinking about how this interview is going to go. A lot of it's because I know some of the answers because I was involved in it. But for the folks out there, we all know that certain parties, and I'm not going to go into which one or not, but we have some people out there that would rather erase history than teach it. And, you know, as well as I know, or as well as you know, when you erase history, you can't learn from it. And if it's not out there to learn from, then we have a tendency to want to repeat it. And, you know, it's kind of like banging your head against the wall doing the same thing over and over again. It's literally the definition of insanity.
right.
And so Blexit is teaching history, which is huge, especially to our youth. They're going out and advocating for school choice, which is huge because, you know, the way that everything's set up, especially here in Anchorage, you have certain schools in certain areas that may be not as rich or not as affluent. You know, I'll give you an example: Mountain View, Fairview, places like that. You know, their kids are honestly more disadvantaged because of the school system than, you know, say Diamond maybe, or you know, South, places like that. So, and a lot of that is not just because of the schools. A lot of it's because, you know, the kids can't afford to get around. They can't get on the bus and things like that. And I would like to see, you know, Blexit maybe step in, talk to the mayor, or, you know, maybe the assembly, and see if they can't get some kind of a thing for bus rides, bus share, you know, things like that, to get kids to be able to different schools and have a better chance.
Yeah.
You know, I work in a business that we have Diamond High School come into our center all the time. And, you know, the kids that come in from Diamond, they seem to be a little more well off than the kids that we would get from, say, Mountain View area. And the opportunities that the kids maybe that have in Mountain View and Fairview they're not necessarily less. It's just it's harder for them to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, in the business I'm in, we get 4 or 5 schools that come in and bowl high school bowling all year long.
Yeah.
And we never see anybody from the Mountain View side or the Fairview side because, for one, the kids can't afford it.
Yeah.
2, you know, a lot of the kids and stuff, they're not being raised by full family units.
Yeah.
A lot of them are in foster care. A lot of them are, you know, they're in the system.
Yeah.
And that's where they get disadvantaged, unfortunately, is, you know, we don't have, in America anymore, we don't have the full family unit like we used to have.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, you know, there was a mom and a dad, and, you know, kids got their values taught to them at home.
Right.
And now the values are being taught in school.
Right. And you absolutely hit the nail on the head when you were talking about all those things, right? So I grew up, not many people know this, I grew up in Mountain View, okay? And so when you said Mountain View Elementary and all these other schools, they're looking at disadvantages. I went to a school board meeting not too long ago, and I sat there and I watched as the school board celebrated. So they had this graph, okay, and all these schools had fallen below the reading line, right? It's like second grade, I think it was, from fall of last year to spring of this year. They had fallen below or were average, the reading line, right? 2 of all the schools in the city rose above, and they celebrated those 2 schools. Did not even talk about the other schools that had fallen below. They were like, oh, we've had some fails, but look at these 2,
Yeah.
right?
And how many schools are there here in town? Do you know?
I don't.
Off the top of your head? I know it's a bunch.
Not off the top of my head. But I understand celebrating the 2. Let's give them their accommodations, but let's talk about why are we failing all those other schools. Why are those failing, right? Let's talk about that. So you hit the nail on the head with Mountain View and Fairview and all these other schools that are failing.
Mm-hmm.
They are disadvantaged in a plethora of reasons. There's not a 2-parent home, right? 70% of our children in America are disadvantaged because there's not a 2-parent home, right? We're looking at foster care system. We're looking at a whole socioeconomics, a whole bunch of things, right? You talked about Diamond and all these other schools that have like a bowling program, sports programs, all these extracurriculars. You invest in what's important to you.
Right.
Right? Where are these other programs for like Bartlett and Clark? Where are these programs for them?
Mm-hmm.
They're not investing in their kids.
Right.
They're investing in these social emotional learning programs.
Well, and that's it's interesting. Even some of the schools like Diamond and South and a couple of the other schools, actually all of them, there are people that are in those schools that are trying to hold the kids back and control the parents and everything else. And I've seen it. I've witnessed it myself. We went through this whole COVID thing for the last 2 years, and we had some of the high school bowlers that had qualified to go bowl nationals, and instead of them allowing them to go to a state that is not as stringent as Alaska was on COVID and everything else, they decided that they were going to, and this was not the school board. This was actually an administrator in Diamond High School that said, if you go, I think she was a sports administrator in Diamond High School, it said, if you go, you cannot basically rep your team. You can go by yourself, but you cannot take any Diamond clothing. You can't do any of that kind of stuff. And I fought for that for like 2 months, and finally fought enough and had the kids show up and testify and advocate for themselves. And finally, ultimately, they had no choice but to let them go. And in that process, we had a girl from our Diamond High School that took 4th in the nation.
Wow.
I mean, that right there kind of tells you whenever schools hold their kids back and wants to control them, then they're risking the chance of excellence. And, the girl that did that is not only, I think she's a sophomore this year, so she's not even a senior, and ended up 4th in the nation, being able to go down to a place she's never been and excelled at a level that blows most people's mind up here. So that's the one thing that I see is, and our school board is just as guilty, unfortunately. They've taken different programs out, like the RSO program. They're trying.
Mm-hmm.
They've tried to take that out, and then they're trying to turn it around on other officials here in town. And I was at the meeting whenever they mentioned removing it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not stupid. We're paying attention, but. We have a really good chance with Blexit, and we have a really good chance to getting people in the school board that will do what's right by the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important that we note that, one thing about Alaska is we used to be one of the best school districts and one of the best school systems in the country.
Yep.
Back in the early 80s. And what's changed?
Yeah. Voting policy matters. Don't vote with your feelings. Don't vote for, don't vote for just because, they have one qualifier, if I can do that, vote for the policy and pay attention. I think one thing that we don't talk about often enough is voter apathy, right? Mm-hmm. If you're just voting for the first name that hits your mailbox, or if you're just voting because your friend said, oh yeah, vote for that person, and you don't know who you're voting for, That's important. And then don't complain when those bad policies that person is, putting in, don't complain because you didn't pay attention.
Well, there's a unique thing now. Well, it's not really unique, but we have a ways to be able to address our officials, whether it's through Facebook, whether it's going down in person and testifying in front of them. I've reached out to a couple different school board members, and the best part about doing that, you kind of get an idea who they are by how they answer your questions. And most of the time, whenever I ask a question, it's never answered satisfactorily. It's
Never.
it's they've become the school board, and this is something that I hate to say this, but it's 100% the truth. Our school board members have become politicians.
Yes, they have.
And, I don't know how they get paid or whatever, but it's obviously that they push an agenda. And it's not just in Alaska, it's in a lot of other states. But if you look across the board in the United States, some states do really well. Like Florida. Florida does really well. Their school system is like probably the top in the country. Not all of Florida, but a lot of Florida. And then you look in Washington, and let's take Oregon, for instance. They've changed it now in Oregon to where you don't even have to have a minimum requirement to graduate high school. I know when I was in high school in Colorado, we had to have 24 credits. If you didn't have that many credits, then you didn't graduate. You had to take summer school or whatever to catch up. I barely got 24 credits, by the way. I was like the class clown. I enjoyed sports, so I passed just enough to play. And a lot of it was because I was bored. And I think we don't concentrate on excelling anymore. We concentrate on mediocrity.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, if we don't have school board members and teachers and stuff in there that want the kids to excel, we're going to continue to keep having this cycle.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be honest. I got bored with learning. I got bored. My friends laugh at me all the time. I was like, I was bored in school, so I quit. My mom tried so hard to get me to graduate, so I got bored and I just went and got a GED. I was like, I'm done. I'm done with high school. I tried. I really did. I gave it an honest go, but I got bored. So I just got my GED.
Well, that's the thing is, there's a lot of kids out there that are visual learners. They're not book types, and they're not digging through books and everything else. And the thing is, and I totally expect this, Denice. I see this coming. I think that what's going to eventually happen is they're going to start doing away with the amount of years that kids have to go to school. The thing is now is kids can learn as much through their phones, through the internet as they can going to a classroom.
Yep.
And, we basically got a professor in our hands or in our pockets all day long. You ask a question to Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever search engine you use, and you've got thousands of answers.
Yep.
In the palm of your hand. And that's great, but it's also, for the kids that don't have the resources to be able to do hands-on learning, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Because, they may want an answer to something, but unless it's right in front of them, unless they can see how you go from point A to point B to point C, it's still kind of fuzzy to them.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that's actually how they're teaching kids to learn now in school. Like, they genuinely, on some of their high school, like go to school packets or whatever, they're saying, hey, you need a laptop because we're going to teach you how to search Google. We're going to teach you how to search, your search engine or whatever. And that's how they're teaching them how to learn. So there is no independent learning anymore. Like, I will advocate right now, if you can, homeschool your kid. Send them to a charter school. Send them to a private school because they will teach them free thinking, independent learning. That light bulb moment that you see on your kid's face, like, oh, hey, I learned that right now. There's nothing better than that. And to see kids just kind of mindlessly drone through, oh, okay, the computer taught me that. There's nothing better than that light bulb moment. And we homeschool our kids. So, when she comes back to me and says, Mom, did you know? I'm like, yes, I knew that, but thank you for reminding me, So I don't know, like, I find it sad that there's no such thing as independent learning anymore because us as a society, we've kind of gotten lazy.
Right.
It's easy to just look it up on the internet.
Well, and you're not, not having independent learning, you're not teaching the kids how to think, So whenever I was in high school, we had, home economics, we had wood
Right.
shop, we had drafting class, we had driving class, actually. We had, we had a driver's school, we had a car, we had to go out and learn how to drive and everything before we got our license, and that was an easy class to pass. Although I do know a couple people that somehow failed that. And we had one kid that wrecked the car.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. So, I think it's an interesting thing that, the way things have changed over the years. Some things have gotten better. Access to getting answers and access to things on the internet has gotten obviously a lot better. The problem is the one-to-one learning that we've had with teachers and stuff, it's not there no more.
Right.
And, it sucks. And, I remember we had some kids in school and stuff that used to do tutoring, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you were terrible at math, and the funny thing was most of the people that I knew that took tutoring from someone were usually sports guys. And I'm not trying to say that, jocks are stupid or anything like that, but they wanted to make sure that they were going to get into college, go to,
Right.
Play their professional sports and whatnot. One of my friends actually tutored me a little bit in, it was English, I believe. I'm trying to think which ones I took. English and language, I think is what it was. But, and he actually ended up going to the Colorado School of Mines. His name was David Jacobson, a really good guy. Probably one of the best football players, basketball players we had. And the funny thing is he ended up, he lived in a big city, and he's seen what was going on there. And he was smart enough to get out of the big city, went back to my hometown, opened a business up, and raising his kids in my hometown. I tried that. I'm not a small town kind of person. But with that said, if I were to raise kids, I would stay out of the cities anymore.
Yeah.
Just because of the social economic policies and things like that's going on in big cities now it's not for really raising kids. I hate to say that, but
Yeah.
it's really not. It's great to, if you're an adult and you're by yourself. Cities are great. I've lived in cities most of my life now. But the small town atmosphere,
Yeah.
the one-to-one learning that kids get, I knew all my teachers. I hunted and fished with them, with a bunch of them. So, I got brought up in a whole different mindset than what we have now.
Yeah.
And now you've got 30, 40 kids per class when we only had like 10. So it's so different. And Don Bockelman commented on our Facebook here. It looks like there's 101 schools in Anchorage. That's a lot of schools.
Wow. Thank you, Dawn.
Yeah, thanks for commenting on that. And Dawn's a teacher here locally, I think,
Mhm.
and I think that she's got her mind on a lot of different things here, fighting for a lot of the same things
Yeah.
that we're fighting for.
Yeah.
So, what else would you like to talk about? You're here. You're here. This is your opportunity to deliver the Blexit message. So, what would you like to include in that going forward?
My main thing is that Blexit is here to help low-income and minority communities in the best way that we can by changing the narrative, as we've discussed earlier. And we need you. We need the community. We need people to come out and show their support. Come out to our events, come to our Facebook Live events, and if you can't come out, show your support by donating, because we need you. We know that you're as passionate about this as we are, and so if you can't be boots on the ground with us, show us your support by donating. If you can't do that, we put out a newsletter, so become a member. That's quick and easy. BlexitFoundation.org/chapters. Just fill out the information, and you'll be one of our members, and you'll get our monthly newsletter. And that just kind of shows you what we're doing, what we've been doing, so it kind of keeps you informed. And that's it. We'd love to kind of spread our message from the Anchorage area to Fairbanks and the peninsula, because this isn't just a Anchorage Central thing. This is an
Right.
Alaska thing.
Right.
So we want to spread this everywhere. Again, servant leadership is what we're practicing. We just want to love on people.
I
So-
think once Anchorage gets fully invested in it, I think it will travel out to Fairbanks and it'll go to Kenai. And I know a few people in Fairbanks I can kind of put a good word in with. I'll actually tonight. Actually, I will message one of them and see if they can, what they can do out in Fairbanks, because Fairbanks is just as bad a shape as Anchorage is.
Agreed.
Big cities. I actually seen something today where they had messaged and posted something about a certain area in Fairbanks that was in bad shape, and they had prostitutes, things like that, down the corner of one of the gas stations. And part of that again is there's ways that we can overcome that kind of stuff. And people end up getting in certain circles, and they end up getting in certain ruts and things like that. And it takes the community as a whole to get them out of that.
Right.
It's not, when somebody's in that kind of spot, and I've known some people here in Anchorage that have been there. It takes passion, it takes commitment, and it takes a little bit of empathy to get somebody out of that. And I'd like to say that I've helped a couple people get out of that position here in town, but it's tough. I mean, once you get in that cycle, it's really hard to get out of it. And I think if we concentrate on our schools, we concentrate on some entrepreneurship, teach people how to make a business out of something, teach people how to have a better living and understand it, I think that we're doing nothing but helping the community. And that's what we should all be doing, rather than bashing one another here or there. We were all put here on this earth for a purpose. Each person has a different one, but we weren't put on this earth to destroy one another. We were put on the earth to love one another and be able to help each other. So,
right.
Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, sir. Just thank you very much for having me, and thank you for everything that you've done so far. And I look forward to whatever we can do together.
Well, I look forward to having you on again
Yes, sir.
giving us an update as far as what Blexit has done since this point. And I look forward to seeing what you're going to do in the future. And thank you for the work that you're doing, because it takes an army, and you've got a small army started now, and hopefully it continues to keep building, and we'll get you spread across the state, and hopefully we continue to see Blexit popping up nationally. I know that there's a few states that still don't have chapters, but I see that changing very soon. So if everybody wants to donate, I'm going to let you plug the website one more time for donations, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yes, sir. That would be blexitfoundation.org, and on there is a donate tab. Just click on that, and every little bit helps. And if you'd like to become a member, blexitfoundation.org/chapters, fill that out, and we'd love to have you. Whether you can come out to events or not, your membership, you get a monthly newsletter that lets you know what we're doing, when we're doing it, and we'd love to have you. So thank you very much.
All right. Well, Denice, thank you for coming on.
Yes,
and we're going to go ahead and send it off for now, but make sure you tune in to right now. Forgotten Freedoms is on iTunes, it's on Spotify, it's on Amazon Podcasts. The video side of it is on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So make sure you click that button and subscribe, and tune back in later, and we'll have Denice back on here soon. And look forward to talking to you again another time. You guys have a great afternoon.